This is part 2 of the incredible story of how Jeffrey Himes survived an alligator attack in the MYAKKA River in Florida while freediving alone for prehistoric megalodon teeth in May of 2021. If you haven't listened to part 1, do that now and come back after. Where we left off was Jeffrey was still in the MYAKKA River after having been bit in the head and hand by an alligator with such a force that he later told reporters it felt like he was hit by a boat propeller. The alligator was now at the surface, staring right at Jeffrey.
And I see her just looking at me. We look at each other. I think we were both confused. And I look at her again. And then she lunges at me a little bit, and I back up a little bit. And we're still looking at each other. And then she really lunges at me. I'm like, I gotta get out of here.
Jeffrey is in about 5 feet deep of water, about 5 feet from the shore, where there is a bank which is also about 5 feet high. The bank is made up of sediment and dried mud, which is challenging to scramble up even when half your skull is not exposed. The gator is only an arm's length away from Jeffrey and continues to lunge and act aggressively. Jeffrey knows he needs to get away from her now, so he carefully climbs out of the water and then scrambles up the bank away from the river and the gator. Not only did the gator allow him to get out of the river, but it seems like she was very much encouraging it.
Climb out of this 5-foot bank. Thank God I was able to do that. And then thank God there's some people right over there by where my car was. I'm right next to a parking lot, a small parking lot, like a dirt parking lot next to this restaurant. I call people over, and I'm sure I look like a zombie, just a bloody mess. They said there's blood in the water all over. And I'm just staggering. I say, call 911. I just got bit by an alligator.
911, what's the location of your emergency?
A guy got bit by an alligator. Please hurry up.
He was bitten by an alligator?
Yes, he's right now. He's being real
How
bad.
old?
But yeah, I call him over. The guy by the name of Steven was a retired firefighter who came over, wrapped my head, and everyone there's 3 or 4 people around me. One of them was calling 911. Steven was helping me sit up, and I almost passed out a couple times. I was just exhausted. I was like, guys, I just might need to take a nap. And they're like, no, don't go to sleep. Don't go to sleep. I was like, I'm about to fall asleep, man.
You're losing a lot of blood.
Yeah, I don't know how much because I couldn't see it. I had no clue. But yeah, it scalped me, and they could see my skull. And then I got a bunch more cuts on the top of my head too, which you can't see now. The hair grew back there. But if you look back at the pictures, it was all over, and I'm just lucky it got me in my head because it was hard enough. I did suffer a skull fracture in my temple.
If she would have grabbed you a little lower towards your neck, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Anywhere else.
Yeah.
Neck, throat, face, ears.
Even limbs, because
Any
that's
limbs,
how you bleed out.
anything.
Yeah.
It did get my limbs. It got my hand, but it didn't tear it off.
So she bit the initial bite was on your head.
Yeah.
And then you said she also bit your hand, or was that like a claw or something else?
Oh, it's definitely puncture wounds because it went in and it got infected over time. The time between my head bite and my hand bite, it could have been the same. It could have been, to me, it was split second. It was like 1, 2.
They're fast. They're very fast.
They're very powerful, and this was only a 7-footer.
Yeah.
I cannot imagine anything more than that, man.
What's the record? 14 feet?
I don't know. I think there's been 15-footers found.
I looked it up afterwards. Turns out Jeffrey's right. The largest alligator ever captured was 15 feet 9 inches long, or nearly 5 meters. It was captured in Alabama and weighed over 1,011 pounds, or 458 kilos.
But in that river, there's a 13-footer.
Wow. And a 13-footer is not twice as big because it's much wider, so it's going to be way
huge.
bigger. Yeah.
Huge, not just longer, but wider. Oh, my gosh. And I've seen a 10, 12-footer, and that was massive in that river, too. And
wow.
The gator trappers said that they knew that this 13-footer killed my gator because it was guarding it, and there was head wounds to it, deep head wounds to the gator that killed me. So she did not survive her gator attack.
Okay,
which is
wait.
crazy. Yeah.
Slow down.
Yep.
Okay, we'll get to that.
Yeah. That's
That's
down
a
the road.
whole nother
Yep.
crazy story. Okay, so you're on the land.
Mm-hmm.
They're telling you, do not take a nap. You can't.
Yeah.
You can't. You have to stay awake with us.
That's where I thought I was gonna die. I literally saw stuff getting darker, and I guess it was the shock. I don't know, but I didn't feel any pain. I just couldn't hear out of my left ear, and I thought I was gonna die right there because I was passing out. Like I had
You could
no
just
control.
You could just feel the energy just draining right out
Oh
of
my
your
gosh,
body.
I was exhausted.
Yeah.
That's what I thought my death was gonna be right there, and it was very passive. I had no control over it, obviously, because it was like just having no control over that was crazy to me. Like I could have died right there, and there would have been this whole big thing afterwards, but like that's all it was. I would have just died, and that would have been the end of it.
Yeah, most people don't have those experiences. Like, how
It's
would you
crazy
describe
to me.
that? Of just having absolutely no control. You were at peace with it. Like you were just like, this is how
I
it
would have
is.
just gone. I didn't have the time to process any thoughts. It would have just been like, that's it. Nothing else.
Yeah.
Like, that taught me a little bit about death, I guess. But yeah, never would have been any pain from an alligator attack. Like, people probably, it is an obviously violent and extreme way to go, but at that point in time, it wasn't. It was just like, this is the end. But I stayed awake. Thank God I remember everything. I remember my conversations in the ambulance. The ambulance got there pretty quickly. I called my parents. My dad called me a dumbass, and my mom was freaking out.
Jeffrey wanted to reach out to other friends and family and decided the best, most effective way to do that was to make a social media post. With a blood-stained and fully bandaged head, Jeffrey recorded a short video from the ambulance and posted it online.
Sorry.
Hey guys, just wanted to let you know I'm doing all right. Just really, really wanted a megalodon tooth. We're gonna be okay.
He said he was doing all right and that he would be okay, but that was really just optimistic thinking. The reality was no one knew if he was going to survive at all or how long. In fact, in an interview with The Sun, he later recounted, quote, "It's very scary when you ask someone, am I going to be okay? And they hesitate." In the back of the ambulance, on the way to the Sarasota Memorial Hospital, Jeffrey was
Very nervous. Talking with the paramedics. Just kind of asking them, I'm like, making small talk, basically, just trying to keep myself sane. And we're all we don't know what's going on. They don't know how bad it is. They're just stuck me a couple times, giving me fluids and supported my neck. Like I said, I sent that message out. I thought it was going to be the last message out I send to anyone. I didn't know. No one knew. And then just the severity of the situation hadn't sunk in yet. I wasn't emotional yet. I was just nervous. And we get to the hospital pretty quick, probably in like 20 minutes. Paramedic was like, yeah, just so you know, there's going to be a lot of people looking at you when you're pulled in. I was like, okay. They pull me in, and everyone's just looking at me in the hospital. They're all watching. And
like the nurses, doctors,
everyone. They were all
receptionists.
looking. And I just hold up my business card. I'm like, yeah, guys, follow SHRKco on Instagram, whatever. I don't know what I'm doing. Like, looking back, that was definitely kind of inappropriate. But
It's pretty funny. What else?
I guess I was trying to be funny. But yeah, looking back, I probably wouldn't have done that. But then they bring me in there. There's people everywhere. Obviously, I'm just trying to figure out how bad it is. And they start cleaning it up and giving me numbing shots and start stapling it. It's like
You're conscious.
34. I'm conscious the whole time, talking to everyone. And yeah, I hear the staples being put in. It's literally like the stapler that you do paper with, but like a little bit louder, a little bit heavier. And in your skull, so it doesn't feel great. But they do give the numbing shots, and the scar's so wide, the wound's so wide across my head that a couple times I was like, yeah, guys, you might need to give me a numb shot on that side too. I'm starting to feel that pain. Don't know how bad it is, don't know if I'm gonna have a brain damage, I don't know anything. And then they send me to the CT scan, and as they're cutting me in there, they're like, you know what, it's not as bad as we thought. I think we'll see what the CT scan says. That's going to tell us what's going on internally, but we think you're going to live. And I was like, really?
You were surprised.
I was like, oh my gosh. Like, they're like, yeah, it might not be as bad as we think, but we'll see what the CT scan says. And then just my emotions start hitting me a little bit, just knowing that I am going to live. And as they're trying to stuff me in the CT scan, which is really important just to see all the internal stuff, I just start feeling a wave of emotion overcome me. I tell them, I'm like, guys, I'm about to start crying. And then I just start bawling my eyes out like I had never cried before in my life. It is all just completely flowing out of me. There's no control. I'm just crying like a baby. And I was just thanking God, just very religious and emotional moment. And they let me have my moment a little bit, and they were like, look, we need to get you in the CT scan. We got to know what's going on. I was like, okay, that's pretty important. Let me hold off a little bit. I'm just like weeping in the CT scan.
So up until this point, you didn't know how serious it was, but you just figured it was serious enough that your life was definitely on the line.
Yes, I knew it was very bad. And the worst part was not knowing how bad it was. So that was very intense. But when they told me that I was probably going to live, that was even more intense. Just a relief. Wow. I was like, yeah, I want to know. It was just, I made myself be still and contain myself. And then when it was done, it just all came out again, and I just let it loose, and I was crying for like the next 2 hours. Florida Fish and Wildlife came in. They were there almost immediately in my room right after the CT scan. I'm waiting there, and FWC's there just trying to get details on the attack so they can remove the gator, because it's a risk to the public at that point. So they need that thing gone or taken care of. And I told the guy, Chris, my rep in there, I was like, don't kill the gator, man. Like, and he was like, it's not my control. I don't know what's going to happen. Now I know the process now, but he didn't know the process. I didn't know the process.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a rare situation.
And why did you say don't kill the gator?
Because I was at fault. I was in its home. I didn't even think twice to have it killed at all. Like, that wasn't even a thought in my mind. I was like, this shouldn't be taken because I went in its home, especially during mating season. I put the responsibility on myself. It's a wild animal. I was in its home. And I was like, yeah, just begging him not to kill it. I wrote down what happened, signed the form, and there's blood all over the form.
Florida Fish and Wildlife took Jeffrey's account of the gator and went looking for the exact individual that got him. The hearing came back in Jeffrey's left ear, and he was prescribed a strong amount of antibiotics because of the aggressive amount of bacteria inside of an alligator's mouth. In fact, many alligator attack survivors die soon after from complications caused by infections. Jeffrey remains in the ICU for about 2 days and is anxiously awaiting the results of the CT or CAT scan to find out exactly what is going on under the 34 staples in his dome.
And it just drains you, man. Like, the amount of energy that was taken from me was tremendous. I was so exhausted just from the head trauma. It's no joke. It took the life out of me almost. And even the next day, just basically very quickly relearning how to walk again. There were 2 points of relief from the CT scans. One was like from the first one they did when I was crying. And then they did another one when I was, just to make sure I was good before I left. They do an initial one and a later one. Both were fine. It just showed skull fracture, no internal damage. I thought I was going to have a hemorrhage. I thought, obviously thinking the worst, but I'm very lucky that it's all it was. I just have a scar.
Wow. I mean, a couple scars.
Yeah, some big scars and lots of them.
I don't know anyone who would consider a skull fracture and 34 staples in their head as being quote unquote fine or lucky. It's probably not a coincidence that Jeffrey's optimistic attitude and constantly focusing on the positive had a lot to do with him not only surviving the initial attack, but also being able to recover from such a gruesome ordeal.
A Tampa man is recovering at home after being attacked in the MYAKKA River a few days ago.
And then the next 2 weeks, man, I'm just exhausted.
And then you're just resting at home.
Just resting for about a week. And about the 7th day, I was like getting cabin fever and I had to start moving again. I was back to work the next week with stitches in my head, slowly and looking like a zombie, but I had to keep moving, man. Like once I got past the point of where my energy was coming back and where I didn't feel like I needed to rest all the time, I just had to start moving again. But I had some pretty intense headaches, a lot of swelling, crazy edema from it.
What is that?
Like from head trauma that fighters get when they swell up. Yeah, it's just all the swelling from head trauma. Yeah, I was swelled up like a balloon. It would change every day. It would move around. I would wake up. It'd be in different parts of my head and eyes.
Yeah, I saw an interview where it looked like the whole side of your head was like
huge. Yeah. Yeah.
Like
so each
swollen.
interview was like different stages of the edema and swelling and a little black eye and stitches, no stitches.
Looks like you got stung by a bee on your face or something. Yeah.
Yeah, it was disgusting. And that, I didn't know. I was like, is this swelling going to go down? Is it going to stay? How am I going to look after?
During this time, the media got wind of the story, and Jeffrey was doing TV interviews days after the attack, some via webcam and some in person in his front yard. In part 1 of the story, we detailed the media storm and the toll it took on Jeffrey. We ended part 1 in NBC's parking lot with Jeffrey, his friend Jackson Tinney, and a few others huddled around the very recently recovered GoPro footage.
Because I have a panic attack as I'm watching it. I can't watch it. I say, Jack, you have to watch it first, man, with no volume. And there's a video of me just watching it, having a panic attack.
It just brought it all back.
Oh my gosh, I felt everything again. That day and the next couple days, I couldn't watch it after that first time. That was crazy, man. It was like the exact moment where my life almost ended. And my life changed. Everything changed after that moment.
Do you think when the attack was happening, you said like you didn't even feel any pain, you were just exhausted. You didn't really have time to emotionally process anything.
No.
And then somehow like subconsciously you remembered it, that 2 seconds where she got you.
Oh my gosh.
And then it kind of just all came back in that moment.
Yep, I felt the pulling and everything and that.
Wow.
I was like, here it comes. And I paused and I said, I cannot watch it right now.
Jackson watches the footage on mute first and then tells Jeffrey that it's, quote, not that bad and that he's there for him. Jeffrey finally watches the footage and just has an absolute terrified look on his face as he relives the attack for the first time. It looks like he's watching the Grim Reaper come for his life, which is kind of what happened. After he calms down a bit, Jackson makes a proposition to Jeffrey to not sell the footage to a big news corporation and to release the footage on his YouTube channel, Juke Squad, instead.
He said, look, I'll donate all the proceeds of the ad revenue of this video to help with your medical expenses, and you can own the video. Because a lot of other places were trying to buy the video and they wanted exclusive whatever.
Jeffrey agreed to Jackson's proposition. Even though Jeffrey was still very grateful for NBC finding his GoPro, he told NBC they didn't have permission to release the footage.
Unfortunately, by the time this story aired, Jeffrey decided not to let us show you the footage we found, citing emotional distress.
It's just a very intense situation in my life, and I didn't want someone to leverage it into something that it wasn't.
Yeah.
But it's much less controversial now. At that moment, it was. And controversy makes news a lot of money.
It was controversial at the time because of the allegations that the alligator attack was provoked. And the bedrock of those allegations was what we talked about in the first part of this story, was when Jeffrey was harassing that alligator a year before the attack. I think it's important to note that that incident that Jeffrey mentioned happened on dry land. Jeffrey admits he was being stupid by seeing how close he could get to an alligator and then even touching it. When I talked with Jeffrey a year and a half after the incident of him harassing the alligator, I felt like I was talking to a much more mature young man than the stupid kid that filmed himself harassing the alligator. He was very clearly not proud of his behavior, and he admitted to me multiple times that his behavior in the past of messing with that alligator was illegal and dangerous for anyone, especially the alligator, because it acclimates them to humans. It was really encouraging to see that throughout this physically and emotionally draining ordeal that he went through, it seemed like Jeffrey had gained a lot of humility and freely admitted the mistakes he made in the past. And on a personal level, I can say that I relate. I'm not proud of how I've approached wild animals in the past myself, especially in younger years. And I think it's important to be able to realize our mistakes and move forward and realize that these wild animals need space and respect. After getting Jeffrey to sign off on the edit, Jackson Tinney was the first to release the GoPro footage of Jeffrey's alligator attack on his Juke Squad YouTube channel on June 26, 2021, almost a month after the attack. This finally put a very solid nail in the coffin to the allegations that Jeffrey had provoked the attack. Before we get into what happened to the alligator that almost killed Jeffrey, I think it's pretty essential to understand that the American alligator that is unique to North America is not just an extremely powerful predator that can rip someone's head open in seconds. They are much more than scary monsters. In fact, they are absolutely necessary for the entire swamp ecosystem. They are known as the keystone species of the southern United States swamps from North Carolina to southeastern Texas, meaning pretty much all of the other plants and animals that live in the swamps depend on alligators. Their hole digging or small pond digging behavior affects the entire ecosystem of the swamps because the holes that gators dig fill with water and retain water when the rest of the swamp dries out in the wintertime, or what's known as the dry season. Wildlife that needs water to survive, like plants, fish, birds, turtles, deer, and pretty much everyone in the swamp, depend on the holes that the gators dig to have access to water all year round. Just like sharks in the ocean, without gators, the entire swamp ecosystem collapses.
FWC has been searching the MYAKKA River all afternoon for the alligator. They say trapping efforts are still ongoing.
Fish and Wildlife, they got the information from you.
Mm-hmm.
You saw the gator like right in your face.
Yeah.
You didn't see like how long she was.
Nope.
You were just kind of throwing out an estimation.
I
You
thought
said,
it was
like,
9 foot.
And then what happened after that? What happened after they got that statement from you?
They trapped 3 gators right in that spot. 2 were too small. 1 was in the exact hole where I got bit and fit the size description of what I saw and the snout mark gash on the side of my head. So, and it was a female, so they kind of put 2 and 2 together. They're professionals. They know what they're doing. They have to trap these nuisance gators all the time, so they have to find the right one, and they found it.
It was in that area. It fit the size description. The
Right.
jaws, they match it up with your head.
Yeah, it fit.
It looked like it. Okay.
Yep.
Is relocating a possibility, or is she just going to probably find some other people eventually?
So anytime, I learned this from the trappers because I know them now too. Anytime a gator attacks someone, or even a dog or something, it's called an E-tag, an emergency tag. They have to remove it immediately. They do nuisance gators all the time. They remove them and they give them to farms. They don't kill them. I
Okay.
thought they were going to kill him. So did the FWC rep that was in my hospital bed.
Oh, okay.
Thought they would probably kill it too. But
Okay.
they told me they don't kill him.
They give them to farms like
Yeah.
Gator World
Yeah.
or okay.
There's farms that will take them for the rest of their lives. But
Okay.
you have to put them in a farm somewhere else because otherwise they'll try to go back. They have just a relocating system where they can literally go back to their exact hole. Even if you relocate them, they'll always try to go back there. And just for the public safety at this point, if a gator or even a bear or any wild animal tastes human flesh, like they just, for safety purposes, legally have to remove it. They have to. I didn't want that to happen, but looking at the big scale, I understand it. Especially with it being so close to a restaurant and people, it's probably got to be removed. But like I said, I never wanted it to be killed. But they were never able to remove it alive because a 13-footer killed it.
A 13-foot alligator.
13-foot alligator bit her in the head, and she did not survive.
Wow.
So that's why I had the skull.
Okay, so they found her dead body?
Yes, so the first day they weren't able to pull her out of her hole.
Okay.
And there's a video of them pulling on a rope, but they couldn't get the gator out. So they come back the next day with kayaks, and she's dead. And there's a 13-footer guarding her. They said that 13-footer followed them all the way back to the boat ramp with that gator.
Wow.
Yeah, they got good eyes on it. I never saw it.
Wow.
Thank God I never saw it because that would have smushed me like like a gummy worm. I would have been gone, one bite.
So the day before they were able to get her out, she got bit
Yes,
by a bigger alligator.
yes.
Wow. I definitely want to see this skull. They didn't clean it. They just gave it to you with the flesh
He
still
boiled
on
it. Yeah, a little bit. I mean, the trapper, whose name is AJ, gave it to me frozen. And he was like, I cleaned it up as best I could, but he's pretty busy. I was just thankful to get the skull in the first place.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'll take care of it. So I put it on an ant pile. The ants did a good job, but there's still some skin on the top. It smells a little bit.
Cool. Can I hold it?
Yeah. Yeah, sure. Yeah, look at that, man. That was her.
Yeah, this is amazing. So this is not a massive alligator, but it's full grown.
7 foot, yeah.
I'm just holding the top of her skull.
Yep.
And it's heavy. Like, it has some girth.
Yeah, if you see the picture of the gator, she was fat. And I didn't see that.
Yeah.
I only saw her head when she bit me. And then when I saw the picture of her when she was dead, I was like, whoa, that was a lot bigger than I thought. She was wide.
Yeah, I mean, hearing your story and then being able to hold this skull, there's some emotions in there. There's some intensity there.
Oh, yeah, man.
Yeah.
It's very intense.
That's really magnificent.
She's the one that let me go. I was the one that got away.
Wow. Wow, what a beautiful animal.
Yeah, there's some big teeth in there, man. And then the bite force, they can cut through steel.
Wow. Yeah, those teeth are crazy. And sharp.
I actually haven't felt them like that. I mean, I felt them in the real world situation. I felt them in real time.
Yeah, that one's sharp. Like, sharper than I would think.
Wow.
Thank you so much for sharing that with me.
This is such a big part of my life. And I want to treasure and cherish this gator for allowing me to have my life.
Yeah. Do you remember earlier when Jeffrey said the gator that killed me? I'll play it back for you.
Head wounds to it, deep head wounds to the gator that killed me, so she did not survive her gator attack.
I was going to take that out in editing, but I left it in because even though she didn't take Jeffrey's life, the alligator took a lot of him and completely changed his life and how he views life in a really profound way. Maybe I'm just reading into an accidental word, but after talking with him for a few hours, I think a big part of Jeffrey did die in her jaws that day. And when he finally came out of all of it, he's a very different person. As for the interviewer that was asking biased questions that presupposed Jeffrey provoked the alligator, the one that was stressing Jeffrey out, causing him to throw up in the middle of the night, turns out that reporter forgot to get Jeffrey to sign the release form before the interview, and when he remembered a few days later and asked for a signature, Jeffrey refused. The segment never aired, and the GoPro was found a few days after that, proving that Jeffrey was innocent. All in all, it was estimated that if you wanted to buy the media coverage that Jeffrey's story did get, it would cost you about $42 million. That was in the first 6 months. And the story continues to be covered by media across the world, even until today. The reason I reached out to Jeffrey and wanted to cover his story was because a lot of the questions that weren't being answered by the existing media coverage, I wanted to get. I worked really hard to present this story from a different angle and try to present a timeline of events that puts you into the suspense that Jeffrey went through during and especially after the attack. I tried to explain the alligator's behavior scientifically and leaned into the GoPro search and the answers that it may or may not hold, sort of like mystery style. The only reason I'm bringing all this up is because I'm currently working on a few more stories that are put together in this same mystery suspense style. If you are enjoying this format, please subscribe. If you take a minute right now and do that, it really makes a big difference and helps me bring you more episodes. Thanks so much. So Jeffrey, after what you went through, in the water, out of the water, physically, emotionally, all of the above, what's your takeaway? What would you share with somebody who is listening to this story and is saying, like, diving for fossilized shark teeth of megalodons is probably one of the coolest things that anyone could do. How do I get into that? But also, how do I not endanger my life?
Yeah, so anyone that's visiting Florida, at least, you're more than welcome to reach out to me on SHRKco on Instagram, and I'll tell you. But at least for right now, I'd recommend getting scuba certified and going in the Gulf with a couple charters and just saving yourself the time and effort. They'll just put you on the spot, and you don't have to do much. They'll even put your tank and BC on for you. It's easy. It took me 2 years to just figure it out and just learn things the hard way when it didn't have to be that hard. That's the safest way to do it if you're going to dive. There's a couple beaches that I can recommend as well, like Casperson Beach in Venice. That place is good. You can just sift and be safe. But just don't be overconfident. The rivers are a very intense place, and you really got to know what you're doing.
You don't want to learn how to dive in a river.
No, they're very difficult. They're treacherous. I spoke with Jim Abernethy about it, and I asked him if he wanted to go in the Blackwater. He said, no, I don't want to. And he scuba dives every day for a living. There's not many people who do it. There really aren't, especially in the river where I got bit. No one dives there anymore.
That's the MYAKKA.
Yeah, we asked the people that were there, and I know a lot of divers that used to dive there, and they were like, the gators there are too big. The risk is too high. I heard of another guy who used to be big into diving for shark teeth, who used to dive that river, older guy, and he got bit twice in that river.
Wow.
Yep. So after the second time, he said, that's it, I'm done, I'm going to the Gulf.
The bites must not have been that, the first one must not have been that bad.
I guess not. That's all I know.
So that's the advice you give other people. What about you?
Well, now I just changed up the way I do things. I'll never do what I did that day again. I've been back to that river diving one time more, and it was tough.
And that was recently.
Yeah, it was definitely tough, but I did it a lot smarter this time. We saw a big gator, and there's two John boats that we were using last time I went, and we saw the gator, and we just sped our boat over to it, got it away, and then we went to the other side of the river. And just made a big commotion getting over there, and we all have tanks on, so it's louder. There's 3 of us. We just double-checked everything before, compared to me just slipping in the water quietly, free diving. That's bad.
This month, December 2021, you got back in the MYAKKA for the first time since you'd been bit. What was your feelings? What was your experience getting in that water?
I was thinking about it the whole time. More so than the ocean, I felt like something was going to come up behind me at any point in time. When I got to the surface, I was always whipping my head around, looking. Of course, you're still not in control, and those wild animals can do whatever they want. And even if you have the biggest weapon in the world, best anything that could possibly save you from a gator attack, which there isn't much, there's nothing you can do if it comes up from behind you and you don't see it coming, like what happened with me. So that's what I was thinking about the whole time. It was pretty difficult.
You couldn't really get in the zone and relax. You were just always had that in the back of your mind.
Back and forth. Oh yeah, that's still in the back of my mind when I'm scuba diving in the Gulf, but I can brush it off more because I know, look, there's no gators here, and sharks are more aware of their space around them, and I've been around plenty of sharks. and had them come up to me and stuff, and it's not as much of a worry. But gators, a whole different world, I think.
A very murky, dark world.
That's what makes it more difficult, yeah, because the gators don't necessarily know what you are.
Jeffrey's post-attack dive in the MYAKKA with friends was less than a relaxing experience for him. Since then, not only does no one dive the MYAKKA, but it is now illegal to do so, in part because of Jeffrey's alligator attack that happened there. Fossil hunters continue to dive other blackwater rivers across Florida. Unprovoked alligator attacks are extremely rare, but there are over 1 million alligators living in Florida, and if you are spending any kind of time outdoors in alligator habitat, chances are you are going to come across them eventually. So here are 5 pieces of advice to avoid being attacked. Number 1, first and foremost, never under any circumstances feed a wild alligator. The reason for this is if you feed a wild alligator, you're breaking the law, it's illegal, and more importantly, it teaches that alligator to associate humans with food. It makes that alligator lose its natural fear of humans. We don't have conclusive proof that the alligator that got Jeffrey was fed by humans, but there are reports that people were illegally feeding alligators in that area. Other places where alligators have attacked humans, there have also been reports of people illegally feeding alligators. So I know what you're thinking. You go to Florida, there's an alligator, it's really exciting. You want to interact with that alligator maybe, you want to throw it some food and see what happens, and you're only one person. Well, guess what? That's what everybody thinks. Everybody thinks they're only one person. It only takes one time in one person to throw food to an alligator to break that natural fear of humans. So please do not be that person. 2, don't go anywhere near any water source or alligators in late spring during their breeding season. 3, scuba dive with a partner if you're in fresh water especially. Number 4, never float downstream, especially during breeding season. And number 5, if you are bit by an alligator, trying to pull your arm or leg or whatever they bit onto out of the alligator's mouth is exactly how they shred up your flesh. The alligators kind of depend on their prey trying to get away and doing some of the work of breaking down the flesh. So if you do get bit, you don't want to fight the alligator. In fact, if the alligator moves left or right, or God forbid, rolls, you actually want to go with the gator, because that way the teeth aren't slicing through your flesh, and pray that they eventually let you go and you can get away. This has happened. There have been multiple incidents of alligators, a lot in captivity, that latch on to somebody. The alligator caretaker does not try to fight the alligator, and they're able to minimize the damages. And your brand is SHRKco.
Correct.
SHRKco.
Correct.
And you have a YouTube channel, a Instagram.
My main platform is Instagram right now. I have Instagram, Facebook, and then SHRKco.com, SHRKco. But yeah, that's where I share all my shark tooth hunting stories and use these beautiful ancient sharks to help save living sharks. 12,000 sharks are killed every hour. Like 12,000 every hour. That's no joke.
Jeffrey is referencing an estimate that 10 million sharks are killed a year, often just for their fins. This estimate was published in a study in 2013 by the Marine Journal, based off of fishery databases all over the world. At this rate, many species of sharks will go extinct because they just can't reproduce fast enough to keep up with the demand. So what happens? What happens if there's no sharks? What happens to the oceans?
Well, it's an imbalance. You know, you got to have that apex predator, just as you got to have the plankton. You know, if you take out one chain of the link, it's going to fall apart, and there's going to be imbalances, and there's going to be what they feed on is going to be overpopulated, and then what those fish feed on is going to be underpopulated. It's going to be a huge imbalance, and things are going to go bad when you mess with Mother Nature.
Yeah. The thing I think about too is like, imagine all of the rotting fish and whale carcasses that the sharks are literally the cleanup crew.
That's
They're
right.
eating all the things that are, sick and dying. They're
Yeah.
taking those things out of the equation so that they're not breeding or not spreading disease to the rest of the animals in the ocean. So how can I'm here now. How can I support you as like I'm obviously a nature fan. I love sharks. I want to help conserve sharks. Like what can I do?
At least with what I'm able to do here now with my company is I donate proceeds to Jim Abernathy, who's a world-renowned shark conservationist. He's done a lot of incredible work that has already worked. So he is single-handedly responsible for outlawing shark finning in the Bahamas. He lobbied the government over there to make a positive change, and now it's illegal. I think major change needs to happen. It's not as much with the individuals, like, yeah, it helps recycle and do your part and so forth. But the big contributors are the corporations in the large scale. When you look at the countries most responsible for polluting, it's like China, India, and other places that aren't the U.S., even though there's a lot of pollution in the U.S. I do want to focus on. But everyone lives in the same planet, and there's other countries that have different laws, unlike ours. Ours happen to be on the more progressive side, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Even though everyone thinks we could be better, especially with the environment, there are other countries who just have no laws for that, and we all kind of suffer for it.
Yeah. So Jim Abernathy is his name. He goes and he works with governments to try to convince them why they should outlaw shark finning and hunting sharks, harvesting sharks, which they're not even, the finning, they're just harvesting the fins. They're not even harvesting the animals sometimes.
Yes, that's the worst of it. There are some sharks that are allowed to be harvested in the U.S., and with that, they actually harvest most of the shark, so they actually take the teeth from it for jewelry.
Commercially,
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, so they take most of the shark, which is better than the shark finning practices.
So you're focusing on macro change,
Yeah.
Not only in the United States, but in a lot of these other countries.
That's the eventual goal. I am not there yet, so I'm donating to someone who is more experienced with it. I'm still trying to formulate my role in this because I want to be actively participating in major change.
Ways that people can contribute in a small way, at least, is by going to your website, social media, and you make all these shark teeth that you find that are not taken from living sharks, not
Right.
taken from sharks that have been around in recent history.
Yeah, taken very ethically.
Yeah, they died of natural causes, not man-made, and then you sell them as is and in jewelry.
Oh yeah, yeah. I love making bracelets, necklaces, earrings. You know, you name it, it's on my website.
Until a couple days ago, I didn't know that I could even get a megalodon tooth for like less than $100,000. School teachers or, science class teachers, like that would be such a cool thing for a science class.
Oh yeah, my girlfriend is a teacher, and she brought it in for a third grade class, and they loved it. It was one of the most successful lesson plans they had. They had a shark week, and they brought in a bunch of my megalodons, and the kids loved it.
That's so cool. In December of 2021, when this interview happened, I ended up buying a megalodon tooth for under $100 from Jeffrey that came from the MYAKKA River. It has an orange coloration from the minerals found in that area, and I've proudly showed it off to a lot of people while telling Jeffrey's story. This past December of 2022, I went looking for shark teeth myself at Casperson Beach in Florida. And for a while, did not find anything, but then I found a small tooth and was really excited. I definitely get the allure. Once I sort of knew what to look for, I found a few more just laying next to shells and rocks right on the beach. A single shark loses between 10 and 30,000 teeth in their lifetime, so there are plenty of treasures to still be discovered. How many collecting activities can you do where you're not disrupting the natural environment or taking relics that may belong to a native people? It's a pretty safe and healthy hobby if you stay on the beach and don't trespass. I'm going to be sending out a few fossilized shark teeth that either myself or Jeffrey have found in Florida to email subscribers. So be sure to sign up for free at theteethpod.com for your chance to win. After the alligator attack, Jackson Tinney of the Juke Squad took Jeffrey to go shark teeth hunting with him after he healed up, which was a dream come true for Jeffrey. They've also become friends since. And then Jim Abernathy, the shark conservationist that Jeffrey donates a percentage of his sales to, went shark teeth hunting with Jeffrey in the ocean as well, which was another dream come true. That's not all, though. Jeffrey also got to be involved in a 2022 Shark Week special on the great white sharks of Cape Cod with his buddy and mentor, Mark Rackley. And most importantly, Jeffrey Heim continues to be laser focused on his mission to spread the word of how important sharks are to our ecosystem. He continues to grow his company, SHRKco, by selling ancient shark teeth to save the living sharks.
All we have to do is appreciate these teeth. And again, my mission is to help these ancient extinct sharks save current living sharks. Like, I love finding the teeth for myself, but I want it to be a lot bigger than myself too. I want to make a change and leverage these beautiful works of art from Mother Nature to save the ones that are around today. And I think it gives us a perspective of our own lives, how, we're just a blink in time, and, we might as well try to make our difference while we're here, if we're going to be here.
You can find out more about Jeffrey Heim and his business, SHRKco, at SHRKco.com. That's SHRKco.com. It's the word shark with no A. And if you use the discount code TEETH, you will get 15% off from listening to this episode. There's also a link in the show notes below. The Teeth Podcast music is by David Chedwigan and Joshua Lopez. This episode was produced by Scott Neary and myself. I'm Jeremy Carberry. Hope you get outside today to look for fossilized or living organisms, while simultaneously giving the living creatures the space and respect they deserve. Over the course of researching, I'm left with a lot of amazing information that doesn't really fit into the story. So I'm going to give you some of it rapid fire now in a segment I'm calling 5 Insane Alligator Skills. Here we go. Number 5. Alligators can run very quickly on land, up to 35 miles per hour, but only in short bursts. Number 4. Gators are not 100% carnivores. They eat seeds and fruits as well. Number 3, gators can climb fences and trees and have been observed doing so to get around obstacles. Number 2, gators can survive inside a frozen body of water by poking their nose out of the water so that when it becomes frozen, they can still breathe the air. Number 1, injuries are common among gators, and their exposed wounds will sit in stagnant swamp water without infection because of antimicrobial peptides in the alligator's blood that provide an almost supernatural ability to fight bacteria and viruses. There you go. That was 5 insane alligator skills.